Oh, hey, I'm glad you're here. Are you like me, having grown up in a video store? Drawn to physical media, yearning for a return to the aisles, a childhood perfumed by popcorn and VCR head cleaner. Do you see yourself as a new release or a late return? Do you wish you could fast forward your life into the end, or do you spend days rewinding to happier times? The solution is simple. Head to patreon.com/VHUS. I'm kidding. I'm joking. But do feel free to support the podcast. That is a Patreon. This is truly a labor of love, so I appreciate that. I'm breaking the intro structure to issue a warning. Yes, this is one of the few episodes that has a warning. The film we discuss is new. And as always, my guest and I have a candid conversation about the entire film. So if you have not seen the film yet, then please rent or buy the film, watch it, and then listen. It is always my intention to champion and highlight films, so please support the film and then listen to the podcast. The film is A Serial Killer's Guide to Life, the guest is a life coach, and this is VH Us. Hello, and welcome to VH Us, the podcast where each episode is about a film and the guest has the profession or experience portrayed in the film. You can find us at VHUs_podcast on Instagram and Twitter, or on the website vh-us.com. I'm your host, Dirk Marshall, and I'm joined in the studio by Meghann Darne, who's a licensed clinical social worker and teacher. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
People can find more about you on your website, innerpeacepdx.com. That's PIECE, like piece of divine within you, or a piece of pie.
Mm-hmm.
Also, innerpeacepdx on Twitter. As an ex-social worker, I'm super excited to have you here.
Yes. Thank you, fellow social worker.
Yeah, your website says you spent 15 years as a frontline social worker, 6 years as a foster parent for teenage girls, and 5 years as a therapist, and countless hours as a teacher and facilitator in the state of Oregon.
Yes.
That's an incredible pedigree there.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, when I was in my 20s, when I first started being a social worker, I realized the need for foster parents and
Yeah.
made the crazy decision to become a foster parent at the age of I had just turned 26. So,
Whoa.
Yeah. So,
You know what? I honestly think that's around the time my wife and I had the same conversation, because we were both doing social work, and you see the need,
yeah.
and so it's incredible that you did that for. I mean, how many teenage girls do you think you had?
Most of the girls, once they came with me, actually stayed with me and often
Yeah.
had some of them had 40 placements in
Oh yeah.
a year period. So I was told that I was one of the coolest foster parents because I actually bought them their own special shampoo and made sure they had clothes that they liked and things like that. So once they got with me, they stayed. But I did have a lot of expectations and chores and all that kind of stuff. And I'm still connected with a lot of the girls, but I think over time I had probably 10 girls in that 6-year period. Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. There's something about that that notion of individual ownership that you just sort of mentioned, where these kids they're going from placement to placement with sometimes just like a pillowcase full of a couple belongings.
Yeah.
So even just having their own suitcase
Yes.
can be something that's like empowering to them. So
totally.
having your own shampoo might sound alien to some people, but it's a pretty special thing when you don't have those things.
Yeah.
So well, the reason I'm joined by Meghann today is because we're brought together by the film A Serial Killer's Guide to Life. Was this a first-time watch for you?
It was. I mean, I've watched it twice now because I watched it months ago, and then I'm like, let me watch it again and get a refresher.
Yes.
But it's great.
Yeah.
It was a great film.
Fantastic. I chose this for a specific reason. It deals with the idea of life coaches, which is the thing. I don't know if there's actual certification for it because I tried to research it and it was too much for me.
Yeah.
However, as a licensed social worker and teacher, I also see that you offer life coaching. So what is this thing, life
Well,
coaching?
I think life coaching has a wide array. When I checked that box on my profile, I checked it for people who need therapy and want therapy, but
Mm,
don't want to call it therapy. They
mm,
want to call it life coaching. So, from my perspective, it's kind of like underground therapy. It's backdoor therapy. I can get them in the
got it.
room thinking I'm just going to get coached, but really we could do some therapeutic things. But I think some of the people, are like depicted in this film, which is funny, but you don't have to be licensed. And so anybody can just decide that they're a life coach. Uh, so you would
Right.
want to do your research if you're going to find a life coach.
No, that's a great point. And it's also interesting that there is a hang up still, I feel like, on
Yeah.
therapy. I don't understand generationally, I understand it because there's people that just think you're just sitting on a couch, like moaning about your daily
Right.
problems. Um, but I would hope, especially with what's happening with children right now during the pandemic, that we can demystify the idea of therapy,
Yeah.
because all of these kids are going to need it.
Totally. Therapy is about learning and growing. It's like,
Yeah.
how do I, just like our physical health, we have to pay attention to our inner emotional and mental well being. And we haven't really been trained as a society to address
Oh,
that.
yeah.
We actually avoid if our body starts to have sensations and we feel a feeling, we're like, oh shit, I need to do
Yeah.
this. I need to go into my defense, whether it's watching TV, scrolling the internet, getting drunk, whatever it
Yes.
is.
Yeah. Eating
Yeah,
cake,
eating cake.
whatever. Yeah, anything to bypass actually facing the
Yeah.
impetus for the feeling.
Yeah.
The synopsis for the film is a self-help addict unwittingly finds herself on a killing spree with her unhinged life coach. At the time of this recording, it's available only streaming, but the director hopes that there will be a Blu-ray at some point. And I do too, because I always love to hear these stories behind the films and the people that put all the effort into getting the story out there.
Yes.
First, to put the film in context, the director is Staten Cousins-Roe, who did a short film in 2013, also starring Poppy Rowe, and this film. So we're talking about a movie that a lot of these people have kind of just started their career. The cinematographer is James Layton, who's done a ton of television. Downton Abbey, A Discovery of Witches, and His Dark Materials, which I'm not familiar with. The editor is Staten Cousins-Roe, the director, and Poppy Rowe, one of the stars, which is interesting that they edited it together. And then our actors, we have Poppy Rowe, who does British television, A Serial Killer's Guide to Life, and has 4 films currently in post. So that's interesting. And the last actor is Katie Braben, who I think is fantastic in this
Which one
movie.
did she play? She played Val or
She is
Lou?
she's the lady that's seeking the
Yeah. Okay. Lou.
help.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. She's done some British TV, and this there's nothing else listed, so hopefully there's something working for her because I think the nuance of this character is kind of what grounds the entire film,
Yeah.
um, and all the just the details of her are we'll get to,
Yeah.
but first let's press play on A Serial Killer's Guide to Life. We start with the self-help guy saying, "People ask Chuck, how can I be like you?" And he says, first read my book, and then he starts spiraling into this like, but you can't be me, you can be like me.
You want to be like me? You gotta think like me. You gotta act like me. You gotta breathe like me. That's what I always say. And for me, you know the real secret? It's be yourself. Be me, then be yourself.
It's very strange, and then we get the title card
It's
for the film and screams in the background.
totally. And it's this, capitalization on self-care, right? And people who are seeking,
Yes.
it's buy my book, you know.
Yes, it's what we've heard, I think, since like the Tony Robbins like days. Is like there's these people, these figures that people see as successful, and they're like, how do I be like that? And
Uh-huh.
everyone's like, well, you buy my book, my CDs, like this is how you become
Yeah.
successful, by making me successful. It's really weird. It's like if you as a therapist had t-shirts
Yeah.
and people would come see you and you're like, well, on your way out, pick up a t-shirt or a snow globe. We next get an aerial shot of the town, and then that same greaseball guy's voice.
Visualize you becoming that person, living through them, taking a step in the body of the new you.
And then we see our lead, Katie Braben, and she's walking, and she has these ringlets in her bangs. I mean,
I loved her hair.
Oh, she's so great in this film. She's walking and listening to "Believe in the Power of You," but then she bumps into a guy who is extremely rude to her, which is one of the first little touches of humor in here. She turns home to her mom, and she makes her dinner, and her mom is extremely unpleasant and clearly wishes that her daughter was successful.
Betty Smith's mother says she's a lawyer now.
Huh? Good for Betty Smith.
Yes, and her mother too.
So we kind of understand now why Katie's character is somewhat downtrodden.
Yes, we begin to see she has an emotionally abusive mother.
Yes.
That's instilled beliefs that she's worthless,
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's sad, but it also is the grounding part of the film.
Totally.
She's daydreaming. She next heads to a seminar, and this guy looks terrible.
Look at me. Once upon a time, guys, I was like you. Lost. Empty. Pathetic.
Played by David Newman. He's in an oversized suit that just doesn't fit right. He says, "Look at me. I once looked like you," which is pretty hilarious.
I used to suck like you.
Yeah, and he's selling his Barry Whitnott pathway to success. It's a great scene, and one of the things I like about this scene is that behind him is a stack of unused chairs on the stage, which it's such a great thing to include because there's like 5 people in the audience.
It's like, you want to be like
have
me
that
up here on the stage talking to 5 people.
It's so good. Katie looks over and sees Poppy, so now we have the introduction of our second lead. We see another little thing where Katie gets her purse out, her little wallet, to pay for the CD and book of this terrible person, and it's this little cat purse. And it's just another one of those details where you kind of understand, like, her mom, through her emotional abuse, has stunted this person to like a 13, 14-year-old.
Yes, very uncertain. She's stuck in her middle school part.
Yeah, and you see, like, even the like that weird ribbed shirt that she wears that has like this ruffle at the neck, which you would only think is a good idea in like 6th grade. And by like 9th grade, you're like, this is itchy. I don't like this. Why am I? And then she has overalls on top of it. It's so great.
Yes. They really did a good job of depicting what age she is. The type of therapy I do is internal family systems, where we look at parts. And often we're working with people's middle school parts that are insecure and uncertain and want to fit in and want to be accepted. And they really embodied that, not only inside, that's how she's thinking, but also like in her outfit and everything.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting thing that a lot of people maybe not in therapy don't ever realize, is that things can happen in your life and you can be sort of frozen in a way in that time period and still continue to process your adult world through, like,
the lens of your 13-year-old. Or I wonder what she must have had a big trauma at that point in her life. It's like, did the dad die? Like, what was the dynamic?
We don't see
something happened,
something. We don't know what happened with the dad, but it couldn't have been good with this mom.
Right.
It's pretty rough. Suddenly Poppy Rowe is there.
I wouldn't follow him down any pathway. He looks like a greased up pedo.
Which, you gotta love British terminology for pedophile. Pedo is a pretty good term for something that dark. She's told that she couldn't smoke in there.
Excuse me. What? You can't smoke in here.
And then we see flashes that Poppy is definitely going to murder this person for telling her not to smoke in there. It's the first time you get this kind of nuance. This film when I first watched it, I mean, you never know if it's going to be like a full-blown horror film or
Right.
something. But I think the way that they deal with the subject matter in this is so subtle and humorous in a way, in a dark humor, that made it so that I could like recommend this film to people because of the subject matter they're actually addressing, rather than it be like, oh, you're gonna see someone like stab someone in the
Right.
eye or something. It's
No,
it's really more about relationships.
absolutely. And it's again this depiction of parts, right? Like that within
Yeah.
each of us, don't we all have a part that wants to kill someone? you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's reactive.
I mean,
it's like, don't correct me, especially if we
Yeah.
get shamed. Then it's like, what? Excuse me?
Oh yeah. I in my old job, the bureaucracy was the part that I absolutely couldn't stand, and we would have like Monday meetings, which were completely pointless.
Mhm.
It's all the decisions happen at an administrative level, and so you on the ground floor, the social workers, are just being told things and then allowing you to raise your hand, but your voice doesn't matter
No.
on the subject. And people would every Monday be like, oh, I want to say something, and I'd be like, why are you, this is just making it longer. And in my head I would just picture me like hanging or poison or just a succession of like me offing myself, not because I really want to do it, because
Right.
the futility of the
Yes.
situation, you're like, just end this any way possible.
In parts therapy, we would say that's a protective part. That's like,
Yeah.
I don't want you to have to feel this boredom, so we could always just off ourselves or off
Yeah.
them.
It's reality for sure. Poppy gives Katie her card and she says, come see me. And next we learn that Katie has to bathe her mom, which
Yes.
is
It was
disturbing.
very disturbing and weird.
Yeah.
She's like, harder,
mother's-
harder.
Harder. Lower.
Yes, and her mom's completely able-bodied, so she's just doing it for some kind of control. It's
Yeah, to keep her meek, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. We see her room. It's totally, she's stuck in the teen
Yeah,
age
the stuffed
years.
animals and
Yes. She removes a vision board from under her bed, and we hear more voiceover of "This is who you could be."
Taking a step in the body of the new you. This is who you can be.
Are vision boards still a thing? Is this a useful tool?
I love vision boards. I'm totally, as they call, woo-woo. And so I'm all
Okay.
into manifesting and all that. And I think, on a practical level, it can be good for creative people to think about where do I want to go? What is that when I think of myself in 5 years? What do I see? Where do I set my keys down when I walk in? Who am I spending my time with? What do I think about?
Yeah.
What am I wearing? What kind of foods am I eating? How do I spend my time? All that.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Mhm.
I always just see them where it's like models or things from like, fancy magazines. And I'm like, how is this appropriate? But worded that way, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Step 1. When you give yourself over to possibility, anything can and will happen.
Then we get our title card of step 1. Give yourself over to possibility. Anything can happen. And then we see Katie walking to an RV park, I think. Poppy answers the door with surgical gloves that she removes and throws in a loose trash bag on the floor, which you're like, wait, what's happening in this place?
I've been so busy with research for my new program, I've barely had time for anything else. Wow. I suppose you're wondering what my program's about.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Poppy begins telling her she has a new program, and she removes a large knife from the kitchen and sits down, and we think for a second that she's just gonna kill Katie.
Yep.
It's pretty
It was
strange.
fascinating too, like that she was in a trailer park, but that her like trailer was like pristine.
Yes.
I'm like waiting, like,
Yeah.
what the heck? She's in a trailer park because she's so done up. And then it's like you go in, it's just like this pristine trailer, You wouldn't know you were in a trailer.
Exactly. I wonder, I don't know much about the UK, but I wonder what this sort of living situation
Yeah.
is, if it's because they all look very clean.
Right.
Like it's almost like a maintained like duplex
Right.
situation or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you have ambitions, Lou?
Yeah.
Like,
Like, I want to go kite surfing in the Caribbean,
and?
and I'd like to have lots of money so I can help people. Like, maybe babies in the Swiss stand, like you said, and have my own range of books, like you two. Yeah, I just like to be like you, really.
Poppy releases her grip on the knife and sees something in this situation. She says, I don't imagine you know anyone who would want to come with me on my trip. Somebody who understands their dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Katie goes back and asks her mom if she could leave. In a very disturbing scene, her mom dumps her food on the floor and then eats it.
It was really creepy.
Is this food not good enough for you anymore?
Mum, it is.
It's all this self-help nonsense, isn't it? Filling your mind, turning you against me. Not what you make your own mother do.
She just looked so wretched and evil and just,
Yeah, even like the point of view of the cinematography was
Yes.
just like the camera's like directly above the
Yes.
mom's face as she's like shoveling this food from the
right.
floor.
It was
It's like, is
spaghetti
this
or
what you
something. It was
want?
all red and all over her
Ugh.
face. And it's like,
It's so gruesome. So the next day she sets off to work and runs into a rich lady who wishes her well with her self-improvement. So she picks up a rock and starts after her, but she drops the
Yeah.
rock. She doesn't bludgeon the woman. She returns home, packs her bag, meets Poppy at the car. Poppy throws her bag in the trunk, and we see there's a corpse in the trunk.
the first dead body.
The first dead body. And then I like this movie so much because right after we see that, we get step 2.
Step 2. Believe in the power of you, as I believe in the power of me.
This movie is so smooth, it just keeps clipping along through these different beats. Poppy reveals that they're doing several therapies before they meet Chuck, the greaseball that we've been hearing throughout the film up to this point. At the gas station, Katie's pumping the gas, and we just hear muffled voices and violence from inside the gas station. And then Poppy emerges saying that the gas is paid for. I think it's so smart the way that they've dealt with like the amount of murder that happens in this film, because it's like off camera mostly, and you see the aftermath of what she's done, but they don't put us through the paces of something.
Right. We don't have to watch it. There was a little blood on her cheek, I think, right? And Lou asked her,
yeah,
"Are you
yeah,
okay?"
she gets in
And
the
she
car.
said, "Yeah, I'm fine."
Next stop, Inner Serenity.
On the radio, we hear the self-help lady's body was found, and then they arrive at nature therapy.
I loved nature therapy.
Oh my gosh. So it's in a group, so I'm definitely out on this one. I would prefer any kind of therapy to be like a one-on-one private situation.
Fantastic. Let's get started. Welcome to Nature Therapy. I'm Ben, your group leader. If we could do a quick introduction around the circle.
I'm Graham. This is Izzy.
And this is Ralph.
And this is Lou. And Val, as we've just heard.
They go around and do introductions, so I'm definitely not interested in this. I don't like icebreakers. I don't want any of this kind of thing. I'm totally down for therapy, but it's definitely a private situation. Yeah, preferably. There's a whole sequence about setting up tents with mallets. Ben is the leader, and people say things in unison. So again, I'm out on the unison thing.
Oh, they made it so cheesy, you know. It was just over the top. And I think that's what people do think sometimes about therapy, right? Is that it's going to be so like, oh my God, these people aren't even real. You know, but I actually like some of the things that he does, you know. I'm like, I think it's cool, but God, the delivery, you know, I see why it's a turnoff.
Yes.
From all living things, experience each beat, every vibration, and connect to a serenity within.
Well, I think they do a good job of portraying things in a comedic way, but also, you know, as we'll go through there is a reality to a lot of these things in ways that it can like, you know, help people and be something that they look forward to in their life, and could be grounding.
Yeah,
you know, very much so. They start doing the oming thing. I mean, there's a lot of people that would enjoy
Yeah.
that. We see people eating leaves and hugging trees.
That was awesome. I hugged a tree just the other day. It just called to me. I was on my walk and I'm like, damn, that's a nice tree. And I just hugged it. It was so big. Yeah, over at Glendevere walking path. That was nice.
Yeah. Katie whispers, "What are they doing?" And Ben says, "It's a nature shower." And this is real. This is a real thing.
Oh, is it? I didn't Google it. I've never heard of it.
Yes, it's also called forest bathing.
Okay. I can dig it.
You can find a book. You can find a book online on Amazon about it. It comes from Japan, I believe. The key to unlocking the power of the forest is in your 5 senses, is what it says. Which, yeah, it's hilarious. It's funny. But
it works.
If you think about it, sitting in nature, the auditory of like a babbling brook, or just hearing the wind go through the trees.
Absolutely.
I mean, these are things that they are calming. So I totally understand
Yeah.
it.
What can get in the way is parts of us that are worried about being made fun of, or critical parts.
Exactly.
You know, I know being a therapist, I've gone to lots of trainings where I had a critical part of me that comes up that's like, are you fucking serious? Like, we're going to sit and do this, you know, all this touchy feely crap that just wants to leave, you know? And it's good to just get curious and notice, like, wait, what's this part of me that's resisting, and why? What is it afraid of? You know?
Yeah.
It's vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's vulnerable to go in and dance in the forest.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
My wife told me about some ladies. She grew up sort of around Welch's, Mount Hood area, and she said there was some ladies up there that were like kind of witchy ladies, but not in witchy in the sense of like spells, but witchy in like they go into the woods and just hang out in the woods, do some little dancing, you know. And I think there's something really beautiful about that. Ben tells Katie to try it. He puts her hand on the tree, and she's like, "Okay, I kind of get it." And then the next thing we see is that Ben's cut the heads off rabbits and putting blood on all their faces. Which I was like, this took a turn for the heavy metal. That's crazy.
We give thanks for what we're about to eat. Now, we are one with nature.
They share a bowl of dandelion wine, and Poppy reveals that she's a life coach.
We're on a journey of self-discovery. And well, she's sort of I'm
her life coach.
Are you? Wow.
What we don't get is sort of how she began this path, but we also don't know how you began your path in social work. So what was the impetus for all of that?
Well, I think most people, when you talk to people who have been drawn to social work, we have trauma or drama or come from some sort of dysfunction. And so, of course, I have mental health things in my family. I have a couple of my brothers have struggled with addiction. And that was kind of I always was empathetic. I'm a Cancer. And so I've always been nurturing and empathetic. And I just saw a need. And then when I found out there was a degree called social work, I didn't even know I was going to go to college. And then I had a friend that went, and she was going to study social work. And I'm like, that's a thing? And then I found out you get to learn how to help people. And I was like, hell yeah, that's what I'm doing. And so I went to University of Montana in Missoula. And then after I graduated, I came to Portland because I knew my brother lived here. And then also I knew it was like a liberal, progressive city and that there was cool programs going on. When I first moved here, I worked at a family shelter that no longer is open.
Oh, yeah, we just love it.
Yeah, well, we find it such a wonderful way to reconnect with our true selves, you know?
Our true ancestral selves?
Yes, and right back inside yourself. Yeah. Nature is... It's everything.
Suddenly, one couple says that it's their 4th time.
They were annoying.
It's so great to connect with themselves, their ancestral selves, their inner selves. There's a lot of selves that they reference. Ben says that they have a treat and that Graham is going to sing. So again, I'm completely out on this one. We see flashes of all of them murdered while he sings, which kind of ties into what I said earlier.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, it's really clever.
It was poetic, and I actually enjoyed his singing. I like that kind of stuff.
Oh
I was
yeah,
like, oh, it's nice. Like I could get into this.
yes, that's great. Poppy then wakes up Katie, and they head off in the morning. And then we see the camp, and everyone's been bludgeoned to death.
And Katie and Lou appears to not have any idea.
Yeah. Yes. She's completely clueless. Step 3.
Step 3. Life is like a box of chocolates. All the crappy ones get left behind.
I loved that.
Yeah. It's so good because it's like you see sort of behind what he's selling in a way.
And who he's
like,
selling it to.
Yeah, he's basically like, look, you're the crappy ones. Don't get left behind. Be like me. Buy my junk.
Yep. And people that have been abused are just like that, right? I mean, they have that.
Yeah. It's really, I think that's the predatory aspect of these like big self-help, I'm doing air quotes on a podcast, people. It's just like you're just preying, you're making your money off of these people that need help.
Yeah.
It's just so sad to be.
Yeah, it is. And then you see in the depiction like how I realized I was calling her Lou. Is her name Katie? What's her name?
Oh, I just go by the actors usually because sometimes people haven't seen the films,
I was
and
like, oh crap,
that's totally fine.
But just
no, you're great.
How she's just set up to be a victim, right? I mean, the way her mom has made her so meek, she doesn't believe in herself. The answers are over there, right? It's like she's in what they would call dorsal vagal, where you're just kind of shut down, like I'm worthless, I suck. Everybody else is over there, and I can't be part of it, you know?
Oh, very much so. I mean, I think you worded that so well. It's that piece that I mean, therapy and so many different things can link. Like, you know, it's like someone standing on the opposite side of like a creek, and they're like, I can't get over there. There's no way I can get over there. And someone like yourself being like, you don't need someone else to build this bridge. Like, you can get over there.
Yeah, we have it within ourselves.
Yes, I love that stuff. My wife is empathic and very much has done social work for over 10 years, and she really like opened my eyes to that idea that it's like you don't provide answers for people, but you can aid in them finding the answers themselves.
And believing in themselves, right?
Yes.
Really believing in themselves.
Yeah, I just think that's so important. Katie calls to leave her mom a message and suggests that we go back and check on mom. So Poppy starts slapping her in the face.
I love that scene.
Oh. Does that make you angry?
No. Ow! Ow, what are you doing?
Do you believe in you?
Yeah. Ow!
I don't believe you. Say it again.
Yes. Ow!
Again.
That was one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah, she's like, do you believe in you? And it's so good. She says yes, and then she gets out to get rid of something, and in the rearview mirror you see something fly by, and it's her just like pitching this corpse out of the trunk.
I wondered how it hadn't started stinking yet.
Yeah, I know. I did think about that as well.
Because it sounded like
then
it was
maybe
stiff.
Yeah, we don't know what Katie's, place smelled like with her strange mom.
Right.
It could have smelled like a corpse this whole time.
Right.
Who knows? They next arrive at sound therapy, which is also real.
What? Not the parts.
Yeah.
Not the. I hope not all those parts are real.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, these sounds will resonate with those vibrations within the body, unlocking unlimited possibilities.
But it is real. I looked it up. There's at least 3 places you can go to in Portland for sound therapy. My wife and I almost went to a sound bath. We were going to Palm Springs, and they have this very Instagrammy, huge wooden dome situation thing where they play the bowls and all this stuff, and you just kind of lay there. We were really excited to go. Unfortunately, we got a flat tire, threw us off schedule, and we couldn't reschedule for the sound bath. But it looks like a cool ritual, and I was pretty interested in the thing. I don't know the applications of individual sound baths or whatnot, but
I
it's
have
all
a
about
bell that I'll
reverberations.
use sometimes to help people like ground. I might ring the bell
Oh, there you
and
go.
have them just stay quiet and breathe until you can't hear it anymore. And I love the bells in the scene, though. They don't just use the bells.
Yes,
And they
they
might
do
have been
not.
tone
This
deaf.
is yes, that's so true. I had my first psychic reading, actually only psychic reading, when I was in Palm Springs. We were in a store that was like called Crystal Fantasy, I think, and there was a psychic sitting at a table, and it was like, for donation you could have a reading, and I'd never had one, and I was like, well, I think in Crystal Fantasy this is where this has to
Totally.
happen, and he rang some kind of crystal triangle over my head and like kind of like moved it around, and just that in my brain, which would normally be like, if you worded this anyway, I'd say heart out, not interested. But the second he did it, I was like, I'm all in. This is
This
great.
is awesome.
I don't even know
It feels
what's happening. I
Yes,
loved it. I
yes.
absolutely thought it was super fun, and the whole reading too. I was like, I get why people do this. Like, it was all good information, because why would you go back if it wasn't? I guess, but like, I mean, I walked out of there just like, I'm gonna tell anyone to go to this. Like,
Yes. Yeah, I think in our culture we've kind of blocked a lot of that, right? We make fun of it. Dancing in the
yeah,
forest would be seen as silly, or sound bath, all
sure,
these things. And it's like, actually, these are things that really connect us, and we are actually spiritual beings that are in human form.
yeah,
And we deny that a lot. And you see how we're struggling. Is because we're not
oh,
connecting in those ways, right? That when people,
yeah,
I see that when people are spiritual in whatever way that is, whether
yeah,
it's dancing with the trees or whether it's going to church or something, that they just do better, right? If you really have a spiritual
yeah,
connection. So we've made fun of it so much that people don't want to do it, but it is actually healing.
yeah, yeah. I totally agree.
Mhm.
The guy is very soft-spoken and wears a super wide neck T-shirt, which is a warning. And he says "Namaste," which, look, I'm sorry, but like white guys that whisper "Namaste," it just
Totally. I
has a
want to
weird
slap
thing
him.
for
I want
me.
to slap him. I
Yeah,
gotta be honest.
yeah. I'm glad you said it because I felt it in my soul. At the sound bath, he begins to walk them through it. I'm completely out of this situation for sure. They all start making high-pitched voice sounds. I
Not
was
in tune
unsure what
either.
that
It
was. No, it's really awful. Then they've eaten and had wine, and the couple are in silk pajamas, which is a big warning
big
sign.
warning sign.
Tell me, what do you think of the interconnectivity of the soundscaping earlier?
Wonderful. Wasn't it, Lou?
Absolutely.
I could feel an intersound connection.
Yeah, they learn that their wine has been drugged, and the next stage is to unlock orgasmic pulses. This is
It took a turn, an ethical turn. I think there might have been ethical violations.
yes, exactly. And then there's a part where the lady of the couple is flopping around the most flaccid sex toy I think I've ever
It
seen.
took me a minute. I was like, is that yep?
Here's the thing. So my wife and I watched this, and we didn't notice that the first time.
No, I didn't either. I noticed it the second
Okay.
time.
Yes. And then you see it, and you're like, that is huge and floppy. And how did I not notice it? It's so strange. The next morning, they eat croissants. She sends Katie to pack up in one of the sections that I think really shows how masterful this film was put together. The lady is suspicious because the radio says something. Poppy turns the radio off, and then you get this like nuanced sort of montage of what's happening as she's gonna murder this woman. The guy's doing something. They're making sandwiches for them to leave. It's this really incredible thing that culminates in Katie bludgeoning him. So now she has actually committed an act of violence, knowingly in a present state. But they just get sandwiches and leave. So that's what's happening here.
She's like,
Then
don't
we get
forget
4.
the sandwiches.
Yes,
It was
yeah.
egg salad and tuna. I mean, don't leave those. They're going to be good.
And they have to be refrigerated.
They have to be refrigerated.
Step 4. An end is only a new beginning.
Katie starts freaking out, so they pull over so she can vomit. She's sobbing, and then Katie starts choking Poppy. Like, what have you created? What have you turned me into? But she can't kill her, so she releases her. But Katie acknowledges that it did feel pretty empowering.
You're the best life coach ever, Val.
I loved that scene. She gets up, they're all dirty. Her butt was all dirty
Yes.
from wrestling in the grass. You're the
It's
best
so
life coach
good.
ever.
Yeah. Which means it's time to play real therapy or something Dirk made up. I have 5 types of therapy, and I think
Okay.
you
Hopefully I
need to
know
tell
them.
me if it's real or not.
Okay.
Number 1, equine assisted psychotherapy.
Is that horse therapy? Yep. It's real.
It's real, also known as love horses. We take my daughter to ride horses. Like I mentioned, she's 6, and I love it because this program is designed for people, sometimes people on the spectrum, which ties back into work I used to do. And it's a big thing. So they
That's
say
awesome.
that the clients on the autism spectrum often use equine-assisted psychotherapy. It can be helpful for others with mental health challenges. Horses can be skittish and require their riders to approach calmly, which increases self-awareness. Working with a horse helps the patient understand their own behavior and reactions, and seeing how the horse responds demonstrates how their behavior can affect others. Which is pretty rad.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Makes a lot more sense than love horses.
Yeah,
I wouldn't call it
there's
that.
healing power in animals, right? And in that connection. Absolutely.
Number 2, puppet therapy.
Puppet therapy. It's real.
It's real. It's so true.
I think it's
Not
for
the
children,
puppet, though.
but maybe adults too, especially if they have a child trauma they need to work through.
Exactly. That's a great point. Hypnosis therapy.
Yeah, hypnotherapy is real.
Yeah, very much so. Hypercolor therapy.
The only hypercolor I know is my hypercolor shirt from 1990.
Yep, you got it.
Man,
That's what it
hypercolor
is.
therapy.
It's not a thing.
Okay.
And the last one is virtual dolphin therapy.
God, in this day and age, it could be real, but I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I looked it up. It's a real thing. It's for people that can't afford, I guess, real dolphin therapy. Is you just watch videos of dolphins, and there's something about the serenity of the swimming, I guess. So that's a new one that you can add to your repertoire.
Okay, awesome. I have to check that out.
But they go to the next group, which is laugh therapy,
Yes.
which is also real.
Yes. I've actually, I do a little piece of that. I do a self-care workshop called Radical Wellness. And in that, we do that
cool.
as a way to, it's a self-care thing, just, just start forcing yourself to laugh. And what happens is you start laughing and it feels so good to your body.
Yeah, well, I believe that. I'm a huge fan of laughter. It's something that I think is really, really important. And like with my daughter, any opportunity to make her laugh, or my wife, it's like, that's my goal.
Yeah.
Okay, next we're at Cynthia's Sense of Self course. She's guiding people back to when they were passing through their mom's birth canal. Is this a real thing?
I think so. I haven't participated in that, but I'm pretty sure it's real.
Yeah, she's talking about you living through the trauma of birth.
Yeah, you're leaving the warmth. It's interesting though, because I don't know that there can actually be trauma in the womb. So when they talk about like the womb is such a safe place,
Sure.
And actually when you think about ancestral healing, like you were actually in your grandmother's womb. And so if you come from a family of trauma like that, if she was like in an abusive relationship, it's interesting how that works. But trauma can the womb is safe, but not really actually.
Yes. We get a montage of the murders, and then we see that Katie, as Poppy, possibly killed her mother, and that's why she's not answering the phone. That's very disorientating, and you don't know if they are the same person. Is she really choking the host? But then she's back in the van. Poppy is driving, so you're like, okay, wait, no, they're they're separate.
Yeah, it was really confusing. I'm like, oh, this is brilliant. This is a depiction of like this part of her within. And because I do the parts work, I loved that. I'm like, oh, there's this meek 12-year-old part of her, but there's also this badass bitch inside of her that's pretty.
Yeah.
She's wearing bright red lipstick and killing people.
Yes.
And smoking where she's not supposed to. You know, she's like the ultimate rebel.
Yeah, she's not adhering to rules. She takes what she wants.
Yeah, she's had enough.
Step 5. The anything can and will happen.
They're ready to meet Chuck. We're reaching the climax of the film. They find a key, break in. In the kitchen, we see a meat tenderizer and a knife. So we're like, okay, where's this going? They find his books, posters, and CDs, and then he pulls up in his car.
Those were the only books he had, too. Did you notice that?
Yes, just himself. Yeah, it's very, I mean, every little nuance in this
He had no
film
other books.
No, it's so well handled.
Look, please just tell them to give me one more week to come up with it. Seriously, I can't. Look, how long have we known each other? Yep. I know it's just business, so if it's just business, give me a fucking break. Well, fuck!
We see him lose his shit. His wife has a restraining order. He's crying. So he turns on his own CD, which is
hilarious.
Just brilliant. And he puts a gun in his mouth, but Katie bludgeons him.
Step 6. Unlock what is hidden within, and you may like what you find.
Yeah, and then it's like, is Poppy hidden within her, you know?
Yeah.
Good. I like
and
this.
then he comes to. Katie's there. He confesses that his life is going down the toilet.
The publishers are dropping me because I can't think of a new book. I'm pretty much addicted to a lot of drugs. And I'm going bankrupt because when it comes to it, turns out visualizing is worth shit compared to a fucking well-paid lawyer. Anyway, who the fuck are you and what the fuck are you doing in my house?
So she goes to Poppy, and Poppy's calling 911 and reporting that Katie has a gun.
Yeah.
So it's like a double cross.
Yeah.
Katie grabs a knife. He tries to make a deal with Poppy, but Poppy shoots him. And then sirens are ringing, so Katie stabs Poppy in the stomach and takes off. Poppy follows with the gun. Poppy doesn't kill her and instead has her stab her again. And then Katie stabs herself. And then they collapse on the grass. And they have this like kind of beautiful moment.
Yes.
You're the best life coach ever, Val.
Yeah. I know.
Where we get the sense and the view that the new you we saw was Katie sort of mentally creating Poppy.
Yeah, this death of one and the birth of the other.
Visualize you becoming that person. Living through them. Taking a step in the body of the new you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that she was like so stuck that she just envisioned this like invincible version of herself. Step 7, be true to yourself, love yourself. And scene. That's the end of the movie.
It was so awesome.
It's so good. I love the story of these characters. I love the two of them. I love that it's not played out completely so that we're just like, this is exactly what has happened.
Yeah.
Like you can still have a discussion. The best films for my wife and I are ones that have some kind of probably trauma or mental health aspect to it. And then it'll take us like 4 nights to get through a movie because we'll pause it like every 15 minutes and just talk about how they're handling the subject matter. And this was one that we didn't expect the film. I didn't know it was going to be this good.
I didn't know either, and I didn't know there would be that twist. It was really in line, especially with this parts work, right? Of these internal battles that we'll have with the different parts within us, right? Parts that want to do things and parts that are afraid that block them. Yeah.
Exactly. The being in your own way situation that I think everyone has. I mean, to do anything, I personally would never put myself out in any capacity. I'm much more comfortable in a room by myself, like reading or drawing or something. But I learned at a very early age that it doesn't hurt you to be in front of people. People's eyes can't hurt you.
Yeah.
And I find by pushing myself out of my comfort zone, I'm a far happier person.
Yes.
And I can be social and connect to more people.
Yeah, because there's parts of you that do want that, right? And so it's
Sure.
like, how do I get curious about this part of me that is afraid, and really explore, like, what are you afraid of? What's your concern
Yeah.
if I did go out? And often it's,
Right.
you're going to get laughed at, or you're going to make a fool of yourself, or you'll be disappointed, or whatever.
Someone won't like what you're
Yeah.
doing or whatever,
Yeah.
like, I mean, we think everything is for everybody when really some things aren't for
Yeah.
people. Someone wouldn't like this movie. Does it mean it's a bad movie? Absolutely not.
Right.
It's just not for them,
Exactly.
And I think that idea of like getting out of your own way, this idea of like creating a stronger version of yourself so you could escape, I'm not saying murder, but
Yeah.
this abusive mom
Yeah.
situation, like in a way we all have to envision ourselves as a stronger, more capable self
Yeah.
to make those tiny
Yeah.
steps, right?
Absolutely. And how do we heal? Like we already talked about, that was a younger version of herself that was so meek. And it's like,
Yeah.
often those parts that they really are stuck, and you have to engage with them and talk to them and let them know where you actually are. It's like that part of her
Mhm.
didn't know that she's actually, like, I don't know how old she was, like 25 or 30 maybe. But,
Something, yeah.
that part didn't know that. And so it's still operating as though we are this vulnerable 12-year-old. And it's like,
Mhm.
wait, we have more power. And so that's kind of what you can do in therapy, is like heal some of those younger parts that are blocking, right? That are fearful, and then
Yeah.
making you miserable because other parts of you aren't getting to live and aren't getting to express themselves.
Right.
Mhm.
Which I think is, not to make it life coaching versus therapy, but uh, listening to a CD that's ideas is maybe helpful for somebody, but really having someone to connect these things,
Yes.
um, from an outside perspective seems more constructive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I basically, what I do is help people. I hold a space for them, right? I hold a container that's safe, and I'm there to help them begin to feel some of the feelings, which basically means sitting with sensations. Is my
Yeah.
stomach hurting? Is my chest tight? Do I feel hot? Do I feel, am I holding my breath? Because it's hard to go in there, and we need somebody to be with us to kind of reassure. And then we can actually access the part of ourselves that can reassure us.
Yeah.
The goal is that we
That-
find that inner peace, as my business is called.
Yeah.
Not, and I did like on the movie too, he said, "You're finding your inner peace," when he was hugging the tree.
Yeah.
But yeah, this inner peace, this spark of the divine that each of us have within us, that is calm, is grounded, is courageous, is clear, is confident. And how do you access that part of you to kind of reassure all these other parts that it's okay?
Yeah.
Whether it's these fearful parts or these critical parts, judgmental parts, they keep us safe too. They prevent us from doing things. When things are new, we'll say, "Oh, that's stupid," or that kind of
Mhm.
stuff, right? Keeps us in this little box.
Ugh, those little boxes.
Yeah, they're not fun.
No, and they keep us from connecting with other people, which is a bummer. So, in doing the work that you do, a question I always like to ask anyone that does social work or gives people so much access to themselves is, what do you do self-care wise?
Yeah, so I mean, that's huge. That's like one of the main things I talk about with people is
Yeah.
we have all these needs, and we haven't really been taught what our needs are. And I used to teach a parenting curriculum years ago called Nurturing Parenting, and they had this nice acronym called the SPICES. And it stands for social needs, physical needs, intellectual needs, creative needs, emotional needs, and spiritual needs. That's a hell of a lot of needs. And
Yeah,
it's like,
that's a
oh
lot.
my God, and I have to work, and I got to make sure we have toilet paper and make dinner and all this other stuff.
Right.
But really, it's like, if I can make sure that I have touched on each of these things, and we can find activities that meet multiple needs, like a yoga class might meet a social need, it might meet a physical need, it can also meet a creative need, an emotional need, and a spiritual need with just one
Yeah.
thing. And a lot of sports can do that too. Like when I've taught the training, I've had athletes talk about, well, for me, basketball does that. It's intellectual, it's creative, it's social, it's physical. So it's really finding, everybody has a different recipe. How much alone time do you need? How much time do you need being outdoors? How many salads do you need to eat? How much water do you need? all these different things. How much sleep do you need? Are you breathing? So I have things I do that, I go for walks every day. I try to have alone time. I'm a big journaler. I'm very spiritual. I'm actually, when you brought up the witchy stuff, I'm actually, I organized a coven, so I'm part of a coven.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're not casting spells, but we are manifesting abundance and healing through nature and stuff. Yeah.
I did one of the episodes in the first season was with Juliet, who is a witch, and we did the film Teen Witch. And hearing her story, I think, was fantastic because these words have such like weight, and they're so like dredged through the mud in cinema, especially, where it's all this like pagan thing, and they're all flying around on brooms, and it's all dark and everything. But there is a side to this that's just nature driven, and people doing like basically just self-care. And it's like
our ancestors
and
were
manifesting.
connected to the earth in a different way than we are now, and it's like, how do we've lost that, and it's grounding.
Totally. And just there's no harm in anyone trying to manifest good things in their life. Like,
absolutely.
It's like, oh, you're trying to make something light in this very dark time.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, when we move out of fear, we don't act like assholes. It's like a lot of this stuff that's going on is fear-based, right?
Yeah.
People are afraid of losing power. They're afraid of losing their money. They're afraid there's not enough pie. There is enough pie.
Yeah.
There is enough.
Yeah.
And if we stop thinking in that scarcity mindset, it releases us. It's like, I don't have to fight. There's enough.
Yeah.
So
that's a great point. Well, that brings us to the end of the movie. Any final thoughts before we go into final questions?
No, it was a great movie. I'm so glad you reached out and I got to see this film. It was great.
Awesome. Are there any common misconceptions about your profession?
Yeah, I think that it's, you're going to go in and lay on a couch. It's going to be boring. You're going to have to just sit there and talk. Your therapist is going to go,
Yes. How did that make you feel?
And I do those things, honestly. But I'm also a human, and I also interact. And I think, some of the misconceptions, even on the film, of just how out there, therapists can be, or self-help professionals. Yeah.
Well, it's true. I've definitely met a number of therapists, and there's a wide spectrum.
Totally.
To, like,
some of them are annoying as heck. The important thing is finding somebody you like.
Exactly. Different people will fit different things. So it's like you might have someone that's like super woo-woo, and you're like, this isn't for me.
That's right.
Yeah.
And when I first started my private practice, it was, there was parts of me that were nervous. Am I going to be good? Is this going to be okay? What should I be like? And then I realized, wait, if I'm not myself, like, I need people that are going to come to me that can relate to me. That like a little bit of woo-woo, a little bit of cussing, a little bit of, I do all these things. It's interactive. I tell stories. I crack jokes. We're going to do all these things, we're going to get deep, and we're also going to come out and laugh,
Yeah, which is one of the things I really appreciated. I don't know if it was your website or there was somewhere where I was reading about you and it had shit in it. And
it was like, one of my blogs.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is a real person.
Yeah.
Like, it's there's something about having the skill set that you have, but also showing like, look, I'm a
human
also
too.
a person. Yeah, exactly.
I don't have every
commonality.
answer, but I'll sit with you while you try and find it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's super beautiful.
Yeah.
What's a good day like for you?
A good day is when I'm grounded and I'm in self. So when I'm feeling really grounded, and I've taken care of myself, and a client has an aha moment, when it feels like when things click. Those are the best days, when you really have people that are digging in and getting curious, and it feels like, ooh, we're in it, and movement's happening, and they're having or as my mom would say, an epiphany, Irish
Yeah,
Catholics, we have lots of epiphanies.
And what's a bad day like?
A bad day is when, honestly, it's about me, and it's about if I haven't been caring
Yeah.
for myself, or I'm feeling stressed, or I got behind or didn't go to bed on time. And then it's just not, it's not as easy to sit there and be with my clients, and it's not as easy to stay in that compassionate and curious state. You know, it doesn't feel, I don't feel as deep and engaged. And so my self-care is like super important. That's really part of my job. It's part of my job. And I feel an ethical responsibility to do that, because I see in our profession that when people burn out, it's when they're not taking care of themselves, because we can only do so much. You know, I'm taking all this energy. How am I letting it go? How am I releasing it?
Well, especially I think that's so true in social work. And part of that is if you're helping people in a situation where they're stuck or they're having issues and whatnot, you kind of only see them during that time. And then you see the next person in that time and the next person in that time. And that kind of duration of that can change you before you can change the big picture. If that makes sense.
There's nothing I can do to ease people's pain. There's nothing I can do if your father just died, or you just, you know, had a divorce. I can't change that. And so, they talk about like empathy versus compassion. And the empathy, you're like feeling it with people, and it can be draining. And that when we're able to stay in compassion, it's a willingness to bear witness to their pain. I'm not sunk down by it, but I see it and I feel for, you know, I have that compassion.
Yeah. And that seeing part even is something that is so valuable, because I think most of us don't feel seen.
Absolutely.
Like parts of us feel seen, but not like,
and those
us,
little ones
like
need to be
where
witnessed.
you're just where you're just like, this is me. I'm real weird in some places, but thank you for seeing it, you know.
Well, and seeing it and valuing it and understanding it.
Yeah, that's true. That's great. What's your favorite things about your profession?
Oh my God, I get to have deep, meaningful conversations. I'm gonna choke up just saying this.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is so funny. I just choked up on that. I'm being moved right now that my job is so cool. You know, I get to sit with people and hear their stories and know them on these deep, intimate levels, you know, like what a gift, what a cool, like every day I feel purposeful, you know, and I know that it's hard because not everybody gets to have that, you know, and I just feel so like fortunate that, wow, what a cool, I can't believe I just got choked up, but my clients will tell you I cry in session too, because I get moved, like that moved me. I have a really cool job.
Yes, I completely agree. And I think that, you know, crying in a session is another level of like you being a person and bearing witness to something. And it plays against that stereotype we talked about before, where there's a leather couch and you sit on it and you talk about the thing, and the person's checked out and they're just writing in a book that you'll never know what they're writing. And then the timer goes off and they're like, okay, next, you know, it's like,
but some people don't like a therapist that cries, because then they become worried about caring for that therapist. So it's an interesting thing. It's kind of a topic, and it took me a while to get comfortable with it. But if I have a client I suspect will feel that they need to take care of me, I will it's an opportunity to kind of reassure them that they don't, and that I'm happy to cry.
That is an excellent piece to put on there too. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. A lot of dynamics to be aware of.
Oh, seriously. Which is why you need all that self-care, so you can be present in the moment.
I have my own therapist, and my therapist has a therapist.
Oh yeah, I think that's important for everyone.
Yes.
And then it makes you wonder if it trains back to like a therapist that is the therapist for all therapists. How does that work exactly? Yeah, it just goes back around. That's so funny. Do you have any advice for someone that's maybe interested in getting involved in your profession?
Do your own work. Do your own work. Don't avoid your own work and think I'm just gonna, you know, I think when I first started, I was playing out codependency through social work, you know, instead of, you know, I didn't marry an alcoholic and do my codependency that way. I rescued kids and my clients and neglected myself and did everything for everybody else. And it was part of, it was a lot of stuff. I mean, you know, it was about my need to be loved, to be needed, valued. It was about a need to control, you know, and control what I could. And so it's fascinating because as I finally read this book, Codependent No More, my clinical supervisor had given it to me. And by the time I read it, I called her and I said, oh my God, why didn't you make me read this when you gave it to me? Like it sat on my shelf for like 2 years. And she said, you weren't ready, you know? And when I read it, it was like, wow, I can still love people and be helpful, but I don't have to do it from this place of franticness or urgency.
Yeah.
I can do it from a place of abundance, and that I'm so full that I actually want to do this. I'm not rescuing and then persecuting and then being a victim, kind of going around in this like, I can help you, nobody helps me, you're a loser, you know, why didn't you do what I told you? You know, and you'll just go round and round in this cycle. So so that would be my tip, is like, do your own work and cut the shit, like be real. Because I think a lot of times social workers are worried about talking about their own stuff because there's shame. And it's like, it's not, it's okay. We all do weird stuff to stay safe, to protect ourselves, to navigate life, you know?
Yeah. I think do your own work and cut the shit is a great bumper sticker. I think
so too. I actually was thinking my business tagline, you know, I always wanted it to be the shit ain't easy. But I like that. Cut the shit and wait, what was it again? I already forgot it.
Do your own work and cut the shit.
That's right. Do your own work and cut the shit. I like it.
I think it's good. People not knowing what it's talking about, it would start a conversation that probably they need to have. So that's helpful. Well, that brings us to my final question, and it's my favorite question.
Okay.
Meghann, what are your dreams like?
What are my dreams like? Like my literal dreams when I'm sleeping and
Sleepy
dreaming?
time. Yeah.
My dreams are often, I have a recurring dream that is, I'm always, and it's an anxious dream. I'm in this big house and I'm always like giving a tour of this house, and the house like never ends and we're lost in the house. And then I'm always trying to find someone else in the house and I can't.
It's like what your work is.
Yes.
Like the person is the house and you're like giving them a tour of themselves in a way.
And what's in this corner?
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. So I have that dream. Most of my dreams are that, or I also have amazing dreams where I get to hang out with my mom who passed away 9 years ago. And I have the blessing of getting to have vivid dreams where it feels like I hung out with her. And we're usually just like hanging out. It's like a family party, or we're just sitting and talking, and I never can, it's not like words of wisdom. There's nothing like at the end.
Just hanging out.
We're just together. There's a presence. And it's like, I feel connected to her again. It's really cool.
Well, that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
Way better than the house dream.
Way better than the house dream. I'm like, Mom, can you come help me?
Yeah,
I'm lost
seriously.
in this house.
We're doing some remodeling in here, and that's so true. Well, thank you so much for watching The Serial Killer's Guide to Life. I really appreciate it, and thanks for taking the time to talk with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was awesome. I had a great time.